Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode question mark of Modern Warzone Weekly, the weekly podcast that covers everything you need to know about Call of Duty Warzone and all of the Battle Royale scene that you care about. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Grandmaster Goj. Goj, how you doing today?
Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic, my friend.
Absolutely. Love to hear that. Me and Goj had quite an eventful weekend. We're going to save you guys from that. Today's podcast episode is going to mainly be focused on one small announcement that we have, and also on our thoughts on the Vanguard beta and our final thoughts on it and what we would like to see between now and launch, as well as towards the end of the podcast, we will move into a discussion on potential of a Warzone ranked mode, potential of everything that we would expect to see with Warzone specific. Me and Goj had about a 2 hour long conversation with a guy who works closely with Twitch Rivals earlier and did a lot of delving into the tournament scene. We're not going to go crazy in depth into that, but you will hear some of those ideas brought up when we are speaking about Warzone Pacific. And but first of all, we're going to get started off with a brand new update that just went live today, as they usually go live on Thursdays about 1 hour before this podcast is set to launch from now on. And it changed quite a lot. Goes, you want to kind of lay down the lines of some of the things that were changed?
Yeah, this update literally, if you're listening to this in real time, literally just occurred like Doug said, like an hour ago. First and foremost, let's talk about Iron Trials. It's been a really fun game mode, and they've actually made some changes to it, which I was not expecting at all. I thought they were going to kind of just leave it the way it was. It's here for another week, but there are some changes. So let's look at these changes. Buy stations in particular, the specialist token has been added to buy stations, which is wild.
Woo!
Does anybody in chat, or if you know on Twitter, DM me on Twitter? I'll check my Twitter DMs. I haven't had a chance to open up the game yet because we've had so many intensive conversations. How expensive is it? Anyone know?
50K is what my chat's saying.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of money.
$50,000 to buy the specialist right now in the buy station. So there you go. $50,000. Hey, look, that's probably worth every single penny if you have the money to be able to do it. Run a bunch of scavengers for it. That's a huge boon. Supply run discounts are now 50% on every item except team redeploy, which is still 100%. Loadout drop markers only down 10%, and specialist token only down 10%. So that's certainly a fairly large change. Well, how much did it drop loadout before?
I think before it was
20?
15,000. I think.
No. It's still 15,000 to buy the loadout, but the supply run discount is only dropping at $1,500 now.
Oh,
I think it was dropping it at least 3,000. It's pretty crazy. The hardline perk now gives a 25% discount to every item except self revive, which is 20%, loadout marker, which is 10%, and specialist token, which is 20%. So the note they have here is we suspect very few people will be able to say they purchased a specialist token. However, we do feel there's an opportunity to provide high tier players with additional impactful outlets for their hard earned resources. Additionally, further enabling purchasing power with hardline is something we would like to continue to explore. So, they're trying to add in more variability of like perks you can pick up. I mean, think about it. If you're able to stack these, specialist token discount of 20% off 50K is it's 40K instead of 50K. And if you go in and get the supply run discount of another 10%, you're looking at somewhere between either 46,000 or 36,000 or 35,000, which is a lot more attainable than 50,000 if you kind of stack these percentages on each other. So big opportunity here to really get some new items if you spend your money correctly. However, I will say it is very difficult to get money in Iron Trials.
yeah. I respect the last sentence that they put in their little note at the bottom. Additionally, further enabling purchasing power with hardline is something we would like to continue to explore. Hardline has never been a part of the meta. Very, very niche people use it. If you don't have a very good group of friends, maybe one friend will run hardline so that everything is cheaper to buy. But I like when they include those little tidbits that they're paying attention and trying to work on even the parts of the game that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, 100% agree. And somebody was asking, does specialist drop after you've bought it? I'm assuming it acts the exact same way. Once you buy it, I'm assuming it doesn't drop. If that is not the case, somebody please let us know.
They fixed that quite a while ago. I think they fixed that around the time that everybody was getting specialist and the juggernauts from doing the Easter egg. I think they made it to where, because I mean, towards the end of the game, every freaking person had specialists. So I think they made it to where it doesn't drop. Yeah, that's a good thing. If you spend that money, I
Um,
don't think anybody else should be able to be rewarded with that big of an impact just because they killed you with it.
so this next change is pretty insane, especially with everything that we were just shown by how much changes have been made to the buy station with not only adding specialists but also the percentage discounts. Check this out: contract cash rewards per player have been reduced, and they've been reduced dramatically. Multiplier values are unchanged. Recon down from 1,300 to 1,100 cash whenever you complete one. Scavenger down from 2,500 to 1,600. Bounty down from 3,800 to 2,500, and then supply run from 1,300 to 1,200. That last one's not a big deal. $100 is not a huge deal. $200 from Recon, but a $900 change from Scavenger and a $1,300 change from Bounty is crazy. This is just for Iron Trials, by the way. I want to be clear. We're talking about Iron Trials here.
Which is duos only at the moment. So, yeah, they. What'd you want to say?
I was gonna say I want to read their note because I like the way they put these notes in here because it kind of tries to provide some context to some of the changes they've made. They say we recognize this may be a polarizing change, but we feel like it's a necessary one. When we gate access to loadouts behind a large price tag, as is the case, we force players to continue moving around the map. This works to de-incentivize camping. While we do not anticipate this change will have a large impact on the most skilled players, those who stay put and avoid engagements will find themselves resource strained and quickly falling behind. This is part of why we subtly encourage map movement and fighting. Additionally, we feel scavenging, being resourceful, and barely scrapping by is part of what adds to the charm and intensity of the trials. This dynamic makes room for and emphasizes other facets of skill like movement, teamwork, strategy, and map knowledge. By delaying loadout acquisition, we are further smoothing out player power such that each increase to it is much more noticeable and allows for more room for these secondary skill sets to shine. We'll be monitoring the mode and the player feedback closely to ensure this change is having the intended effect. I love this paragraph.
Yeah.
This is broken down to essentially we are trying to create more and more of a skill gap. This is amazing.
This paragraph 100% confirms to me what we've talked about. This is going to be, this is ranked. This is ranked. This is ranked. And this, I mean, if you think about it, guys, when they announced this game mode, they made a big deal about it. Number one. Number two, they announced it as a completely different way to play, and they're going to do all these changes. But that was big. But the big thing is that this is only supposed to be a 2-week long game mode. And look at this paragraph they just wrote. Like, this is not indicative of a 2-week only limited time mode.
100%.
Warzone ranked is a lot closer than everybody thinks.
I mean, listen, we will be monitoring the mode and player feedback closely to ensure this change is having the intended effect. When was the last time they had a limited time mode that they actually changed and edited? Like, this is a huge deal that may be like a little bit overlooked by a lot of the like normal player base. They are closely monitoring this mode because they know it's going to be huge going forward. And of course, we can also like emphasize this by the fact that they tweeted out, which I said this before the podcast started, but they tweeted out they are adding Iron Trials to custom game UI soon. And not today, but soon they're adding Iron Trials to the custom game UI. They would not add it to the custom game UI if the game mode leaves in 7 days.
Yeah, and again, they have never, to point on to what Goj said, they have never paid this much attention to any limited time mode, and the only changes that I can recall that they've made to limited time modes are completely game-breaking changes, such as when they added Armored Royale, that the machine gun on the truck allowed people to become invisible. They immediately, took out the game mode, basically. Those are the only times I can think of anything like that. And if you go through these entire patch notes, which we're going to, the largest piece of excerpt from Braven talking about anything is about Iron Trials in this one paragraph. And they carefully worded how they wrote all this. And everything that they're saying that they're looking for, I mean, they mentioned that they're subtly trying to encourage players to move around and cause incentives to encourage that. That's just great to see. I really do think that it's a lot closer than anybody thinks.
I literally tweeted this in regards to something else, but I'm going to repeat my tweet. They are listening. They are listening. 100% they are listening. They know what is enjoyable for players and what is enjoyable for viewers. And it's really cool to finally say they are listening, right? This is a huge deal. A couple other changes that happened to Iron Trials really quickly. The Gulag LMGs, except the RPD, Black Ops Cold War, and all tactical rifles, so light machine guns besides the RPD, and all tactical rifles have been removed from Gulag loadouts.
I
Feel an
mean,
emphasis on SMGs and assault rifles better suits this version of the Gulag.
that means no DMR, no Type 63. I can't think of all of them, but that is great. Anything that makes the Gulag more of a competitive, not hold a corner and hope that you hit a headshot type thing, I'm all for it.
They did fix the broken. Did anybody know about the broken Kali sticks, by the way, in Iron Trials? Did anybody else know about that? A lot of people avoided actually putting out videos on it because it was so game breaking. Kali sticks had a bug, which this next thing fixes. But Kali sticks had a bug where if you're on controller and you double tap LT and RT at the exact same time and spam it, it can actually 2-hit still. Which is crazy.
I did
Your
not
health
know
is
that.
Yeah, your health is crazy. Dude, I watched Iceman Isaac do it. He literally went on like a 20 kill streak with just Kali sticks. It was
I,
the wildest thing I've ever
I
seen.
remember when we first started talking about Iron Trials, Kali sticks were one of the first things that I brought up and that we talked about because I was like, these things are absurdly fast. They're going to be broken. I did not even know about that. And even with that, I haven't seen that many people running Kalis. Surprising.
Yeah, so the change here that we're referring to is melee. Weapons will no longer deal more than 120 damage per melee hit. I want to say though, if we have 250 health plus 150 in plates, so 400 health, so you're still talking about a 4-hit melee, which is great. It's really really good still with Kali sticks, but at the same time, like that's way better than two hit. 2-hit was like almost an insta down. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen.
That's really encouraging to me because usually I'm on top of stuff like that. I did not know about that bug and it's fixed already.
Yeah, the only reason I knew about the bug is because I was watching Ice's stream when he did it, and he specifically said, "I am not making a video on this. This is insane."
Yeah.
Let's talk about loot. Last thing here for Iron Trials, and then there's some gun changes and some bug fixes. Loot, armor satchel, gas mask, and self-revive drop rates have been reduced. Again, increasing skill gap, increasing the ability, like, hey, resources are everything, etc. Ground loot XM4 Black Ops Cold War attachments have been updated. Ground loot Bullfrog attachments have been updated. The note here is the XM4 and the Bullfrog attachments are now more closely aligned with popular builds. This is a big deal. I mean, this is just not a big deal, but it's a good quality of life change. It just means the XM4 and the Bullfrog are going to feel better off of ground loot, which is good because again, loadouts cost more. You're not getting free loadouts. Your ground loot has to be playable, and they're making changes to make sure that's the case.
I think this is one of the first times they've used the terminology of more closely aligned with popular builds. Just shows me they really pay attention to what the meta is. And I mean, if you guys remember, if you've been playing Warzone since it came out, originally, like a lot of the blueprints were just trash. Like a lot of the attachments that they came with. But now we're starting to notice that when they release, like Tracer Pack or Reactive Bundle blueprints, it's almost always meta equipped. And that makes me happy, one, because I spent money on it. It better be decent. And two, because when you usually change attachments on those guns, it completely ruins the look.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. They're definitely listening. There's no question about it. Couple other things on here. I'll do the bug fixes, and then Doug, if you want to talk about weapons and attachments. The small little bug fixes here: fixed additional collision issues with various elements on Rebirth Island, allowing players to exploit /peek/shoot through them. And then fixed an issue with the Bullfrog that reduced recoil while firing. I didn't know that issue existed. I know there's some Bullfrog variants or a Bullfrog armory weapon that has weird sound issues that are banned from tourneys that is not addressed in this bug fix. But I didn't know there was a reduced recoil Bullfrog issue.
I didn't either. They honestly, a lot of times in these patch notes, like I know me and you both feel like we're on top of the scene, but they'll address bugs that I'd never heard of, which is a good thing.
Definitely. All right. How about you kind of go through our weapon changes / attachment changes pretty quickly?
All right. Now we're going to move on to those weapon changes. And one of them, I'm going to skip past the first one because it's about the Bullfrog. One of them is actually a big change that we just noticed an issue with yesterday and that I've been being tagged in on the Modern Warzone account for a long time by both Brazilian streamers and everybody. Little do people know there's actually different metas in different countries and different servers. Brazil has been plagued by the Gallo shotgun for months now, according to what they've all told me. Pretty much every single person in Brazilian servers was running stun grenades plus Gallo, which meant every one-on-one fight was just insta-death, and there's no fun in that. But They finally nerfed the Gallo shotgun in Warzone for everyone. We just saw that it was absolutely dominant in both the World Series of Warzone they did, where the $100,000 game for solos, everybody was running a Gallo, and then we just had a Twitch Rivals event yesterday, to where there was no ban, so everybody was running. At least one person in every team had a Gallo shotgun. So I see a lot of people on the timeline saying that, the Gallo's not the strongest, it just had the most attention, blah, 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 blah. The fact is, at least they fixed that one. And the other fact is that some of the Brazilian streamers and stuff have said they don't think that this is going to be enough. But sometimes it's more about the community than it is about whether or not the gun's meta. I understand that it's a shotgun and it's going to be destroying people, but we have to give this a little time to see how it does. What they did was they decreased the maximum damage range from 4.5 to 3.5 meters. The second damage range was decreased from 8.1 to 5.5 meters, and the third damage range was decreased from 13.2 to 9.9 meters. So now there is no damage range for the Gallo outside of 10 meters, and their little note they put with it is, the Shotgun Bravo, please stop naming things like this, just stop it, has been incredibly dominant due to its effective damage range, magazine capacity, mobility, and rate of fire. By reducing its effective damage ranges, the Shotgun Bravo... Please... I can't even think. The Gallo shotgun will begin to feel more like a shotgun and less like a sniper. First of all, it didn't really feel like a sniper. It just was incredibly strong in close range. You could ADS, but it's welcome change for me. What do you think about that change, Coach?
Yeah, it's a good change. In all reality, besides Rivals and I guess World Series of Warzone, which again we had a conversation about this earlier, it doesn't really matter what they do to the Gallo in terms of the tournament scene. Shotguns are going to be banned in every single tournament that's paying attention. It should be. It has to be for the competitive scene's sake. It has to be. Nerfing it for pubs is really good for the people that actually use it in pubs. Like you said, in a servers, you're not seeing a lot of Gallos. You definitely see some. You're not seeing that much, but in Brazilian servers, it's like every other person using it. So this will be hopefully a helpful change for a lot of people that are running into it in pubs.
Yeah, that's the goal for them. They want to, this is going to be naturally banned in competitive games. But moving on to the next weapon that was changed, the Bullfrog actually received a change on top of the bug fix we just mentioned. The ADS speed has been decreased by 9%. That's kind of a big change. Movement speed has been decreased by 1%, and ADS movement speed has been decreased by 2%. And the little excerpt Raven put here is the Bullfrog Black Ops Cold War. Oh, wow, they didn't call this one Submachine Gun Bravo. Wow, it's a true jack of all trades. It has great mobility, effective damage range, handling, and base magazine capacity, which would often act as a free attachment. True. These changes, in conjunction with a recoil bug fix, will bring the Bullfrog much closer to the competition. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's some changes. ADS speed decrease a little bit, movement speed decrease a little bit, ADS movement speed decrease a little bit. I think it's going to fall within the meta still. I don't think these changes are big enough to really pull it outside the meta. Bullfrog's always been like meta adjacent, if you will. Some people like it, some people hate it, and that's how most guns should be. It's like should be what gun you're most comfortable with, and this should probably put it closer to what I'll call fringe meta.
Chat saying that the ADS was increased, not decreased. It says decreased here, but maybe they did it wrong. The Bullfrog is a jack of all trades, has great mobility. These changes in conjunction with recoil fix. I've been using the Bullfrog pretty exclusively lately just because I like the way it felt. I'm interested to see how it feels to me once I get my hands on it today. And these changes, just for anybody who's listening, these are the changes that are active in all Warzone matches, and that includes Iron Trials. The changes we mentioned before the weapon started were exclusive to Iron Trials, just so that nobody gets confused there.
Weapon changes will be pervasive across all modes in Warzone, 100%.
And I see some people in chat saying why they don't call them the gun, and I understand their reasoning for not calling it the gun, but right here it says the Bullfrog, and then they put in parentheses Black Ops Cold War. I'm sorry to tell them, but there is no other Bullfrog besides the Black Ops Cold War Bullfrog. And then the next one, they do the Shotgun Bravo. Look, I understand that you can't call it the Spaz 12, but you can still call it the Gallo because you call it the Gallo in your game. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I got you.
And then we're going to move on to attachments. So they've noticeably changed attachments and how they work on 3 different weapons. The Krig 6, which has been absolutely nerfed to the ground. The AK-47 from Black Ops Cold War, and the XM4 from Black Ops Cold War. Wow, they're actually calling them by the guns' names. The Krig 6 had its takedown barrel's horizontal recoil control increased from 8 to 9%. It had the 19.7-inch Ranger. Vertical recoil control increased from 8 to 9% as well. The 15.5-inch contour barrel, horizontal recoil control increased from 4 to 5%. Vertical recoil control increased from 4 to 5%. And then the 15-inch CMV mil spec, I believe that's the last one you unlock for the Krig. The horizontal recoil control has been increased. So they basically just buffed the Krig a good bit because it was unusable after that last nerf, which I don't think anybody was really complaining about.
Uh, I mean, what they really did was, I mean, their note here is just because of recent adjustments, we felt it appropriate to increase the effectiveness of the recoil control attachment slightly. So they basically saying that the Krig had too much recoil for the way it should be used, which I mean, I don't know who's saying that. I mean, I don't know how much this is really changing because it's 1% changes across the board. But if you can stack some of these, sure. But at the same time, it's like the Krig doesn't have recoil, and it didn't have recoil after the nerf either, unless I'm insane.
I thought it
Like
did now. I thought it had
I
terrible
didn't.
recoil now.
I don't think so. Does it?
I'm
Maybe
pretty
I'm
sure that's what
crazy.
everybody was saying, that they like
Okay.
that they I'm chat, let me know if I'm wrong, but they were saying that every, like, even I saw J God's video, the thing has the recoil of a shotgun now.
Oh God. Okay. Well, I guess these are certainly necessary. Then, if it's that bad, then maybe there needs to be more than this.
Okay.
Recoil was increased by
Yeah,
400%.
that's coming from Tony, who's True Game Data. So that's what I
Lord
meant.
help
Like,
us.
that was the craziest. Like, they just absolutely put that weapon in the ground. But I understand to an extent because they had already nerfed it twice and it didn't affect it at all. Like, they kind of hard nerfed it, but it was so accurate still, it just did not matter. We'll move on to the next gun, which it actually makes me sad to see that this one has been nerfed a bit with its attachments. The AK-47 Black Ops Cold War has been slapping pretty much for months now. One of my favorite guns to use from Black Ops Cold War at medium to long range. The 18.2-inch takedown barrel has had its horizontal recoil control decreased from 11.1 to 10%. The 20-inch Liberator has had its vertical recoil decreased from 11.1 to 10%. The 18.2-inch VDV reinforced barrel has had its horizontal recoil control decreased from 5.5 to 4%. The vertical recoil control has been decreased from 5.5 to 4%. And the 20-inch Spetsnaz RPK barrel has had both of its recoils reduced from 9 to 8%, and its vertical recoil control decreased from 9 to 8.5%. And it seems to me they didn't leave an excerpt on this one. This is the first one they haven't. That this is all to make the AK still a strong weapon, but just take more skill to use. What do you think, Goosh?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was already the case. I mean, this is a gun that I could actually see. Like, there's real recoil with the AK-47, like the Cold War AK-47, and maybe it's the case that I just haven't played with the Krig recently, which is totally fair. But the AK-47, this requires skills to use. This is not a casual player's weapon when you're trying to slay out and get a bunch of kills, because there's real recoil that you have to adjust for, and they just made it even harder to adjust for, which will increase the skill gap to be able to use the gun. It won't necessarily shift it out of the competitive meta. That could be the final shift to get it out of the casual meta, though, because it's a difficult gun to use, especially at range with the amount of recoil that it has.
I've been seeing a lot of people since the latest nerf before this one talk about the AK-47, and I absolutely love the gun. If you've been playing Call of Duty for a long time, it's like the AK-47 is like a poster child of the game. So it always felt good when the gun was decent. Next is the last one that they changed the attachments for, and that is the XM4. I've heard a lot of people have been using this recently as well. 13.7-inch takedown barrel has had a recoil nerf from 11.3% to 10% for horizontal. 13.7-inch Ranger has had its vertical recoil control nerf from 11.3% to 10%. The 13.5-inch reinforced heavy has had its horizontal recoil control reduced from 5.5 to 4%, and the task force has had its horizontal and vertical recoil control decreased from 9 to 8%. So they're basically adding recoil to the XM4. Do you feel like that change was necessary?
Yeah, 100%. The XM4 is when you take out like LMGs and things in the competitive scene in particular, the XM4 is like the easiest AR to use right now. It's creeping its way, or it was creeping its way into meta for a while, and now it's like kind of transcending into meta very quickly because people are recognizing how strong it is. I was watching, I can't remember if it was Iceman or if it was might have been somebody else. No, I think it was Iceman Isaac that was saying. No, it was Almond. Almond was saying the XM4 feels like the best gun at range beyond any other gun.
Yep.
Because of its lack of recoil and its still ability to hit decently hard. So kind of felt like what the Krig used to feel like to some degree. So adding a little bit more recoil is probably good for the gun, good for the overall meta. Again, the goal here, when I say good for the meta, the goal here is to have a large variety of weapons to choose from when you're going in trying to enter into a game. Being forced into one specific gun because it's the most powerful is not how the game should on paper be played.
And I know some people get upset when they see things like this, but I remember when the XM4 was brought into the meta. I do believe it was around the time it was brought in as a close range weapon to use because you could just fly around while you were firing it. I do believe that was around the time that the Vex Lord blueprint was ground loot for it, and people were just, you realized after picking up that ground loot, like, this thing fries. And that's when it first got started. And I know a lot of people get upset because they feel like the meta is not good in Warzone. But just look at the place the XM4 is in now compared to where it was then. It has changed a lot. It's no longer a close range meta like it used to be. And they're still making good changes to it. But that was
still, I will say it is still very much so one of the most widely used guns at different ranges. Like there are still people that use it as not only a long range weapon, but also a sniper support, and is also even some people are still using it as an SMG. So it's probably the most the gun with the most ability to be used at any given range, given that it's built out correctly. Which honestly sounds like what they want Vanguard to be, right? Like when we
yeah.
talk about Vanguard, which is kind of a good transition into Vanguard because that's all of the patch notes actually for this update. This is what Vanguard's been hinting at with their 10 attachment system. They want to be able to build out an LMG to be able to be viable as an SMG, which is crazy. But that's the way their attachment system is going to work. And right now, really only the XM4 is a gun that looks like that or could be used like that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that quite a short list of patch notes, but if you want the too long, didn't read for it. Basically, a bunch of Iron Trials changes. They added specialist to Iron Trials. When we go through the weapons, they actually nerfed the Bullfrog and they nerfed the Gallo, and then we move into weapon attachments, and they pretty much they buffed the Krieg's weapon attachments just a little bit for recoil, and then they nerfed the AK-47 and XM4 attachments for recoil. So that's pretty much all of the changes from today's Warzone update. The other thing that we mentioned is that Goach said, Raven put out a little teaser tweet saying that Iron Trials isn't coming to custom games yet. They didn't say it's for sure coming, but they said yet, which means it's for sure coming. And basically, this is the precursor to Warzone Ranked. So get your dive into Iron Trials while you can, get the hang of it, do what you can do. Because when we move to Warzone Pacific, there is no telling what the game is going to be like.
100%. So let's talk about Vanguard, right? This is a good transition into Vanguard. Before we get into Vanguard, this is a great opportunity. If you're a sponsor out there looking to sponsor our podcast, we can really showcase all of the amazing things that your product has to offer, whether it's shaving my balls or it's, eating pizza on stream. Like we can do anything. So think about sponsoring the podcast. We've got some great statistics. Doug actually made a tweet the other day that we're like the second most listened to podcast in the gaming category in multiple countries out there. We're going to be changing a lot of the way our things are working right now with regular uploads, as well as a brand new YouTube channel that we'll keep you guys updated about and talk more at the end of the podcast. But after this quick spot without a sponsor, let's move into Vanguard Conversations. So Doug, you are the Vanguard specialist in this conversation. I'm but a bystander. Tell me about Vanguard. Tell me about what you think about it. Tell me about your general impressions and tell me about where we need to go. And also, this is from the community, not me. Don't be a shill.
Oh my God. To me, Vanguard feels better than Modern Warfare. I'm just going to start this conversation off by saying that. The pacing of the game feels entirely different. You no longer are having to worry about... people still camp, don't get me wrong. People will camp in every single Call of Duty game ever made, but this game is clearly decentivizing camping in a lot of ways. I mean, before the game came out, we thought that the new mounting changes and all the environments and stuff were going to incentivize camping, but from my experience after playing the Vanguard beta and the alpha for more than like 80 plus hours, like I really put the time in to make sure that my opinion wasn't just biased because I run a Call of Duty account. This game is going to be incredible if they make the changes that they need to make, and they've already addressed a couple of big ones. Number one, the sun is just preposterous. They've already said that they're going to fix that. And no, it's not with a pair of sunglasses that are going to be a field upgrade like I tweeted. That was a meme. Number two is overall visibility. It's been trash for players on last gen console, and for even some PC players have complained about it. Number three, respawns are pretty borked throughout multiple different game modes, but even that didn't ruin my enjoyment. I got spawn trapped plenty of times. I still was having fun. It was just as fun to go do it to the other team. And number four is, this is going to be my most opinionated thought on Vanguard, and it's one that I don't think is going to be changed. So bear with me, guys. I really am worried. I am worried about the new suppression and flinch system. I understand, and the reason I say I'm worried is because it's not going to be easily fixed. It is ingrained in the game. If you go look at the new attachments, kits, and proficiencies throughout the weapons, they show multiple different ways to either add flinch to your weapon when you shoot somebody, or to remove flinch when somebody shoots you. On top of that, they also have multiple kits and proficiencies, which are attachments for your weapons, that alter how much suppression you do to somebody, how fast they can move through the suppression, and there's also different attachments that add, more damage to vital spots, and there's some that add more damage to shooting people in the legs. I'm worried that the suppression system is not going to be received well, because basically how it functions is, if you get shot at by somebody and they hit or miss you, you basically are running in quicksand. You cannot move. The best way to move, I found, when you're suppressed is to just spam the jump button and bunny hop all around everywhere. That seemed to work well, but that's one of the biggest things that I'm concerned with Vanguard. Just, we're talking about multiplayer, guys, right now. We're not talking about Warzone. That discussion will come after this one. Overall, though, I truly did enjoy the game. I will state this, though. You can call me a shill. You can say all you want. When it comes to last generation consoles, don't buy this game. I do not recommend buying this game. Until they show me something that proves that my experiences on the beta are not indicative of what the final product is going to be like, or even if they show that, when the game comes out, that they know they haven't truly... They've addressed almost every issue with the game through players' feedback, but they haven't really made a monumental statement about the major issues on last generation consoles when it comes to being able to run this game. This game was built from the ground up for next gen. They mentioned that in their first ever announcement about Vanguard. So I'm extremely worried for last generation consoles. I hope that the game is better for you guys, but I do not recommend buying it on a last gen console.
Super interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts as well on FaZe Jev's comments about the game and where he felt the game was currently at based on the beta.
FaZe Jev felt the way he felt because he absolutely detested Modern Warfare in every way, shape, or form. And I feel like he was so strong about his opinion because, as a big influencer like he is, most of the comments that he reads are people saying that Modern Warfare, that this new World War II game is just Modern Warfare 19 reskinned. It's not the case. Built on the same engine, use a lot of the same tech and resources. Not the case. It is not a reskinned game. There are multiple new game mechanics. The destructible environments. I guess I can talk about this. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but you could actually get into custom lobbies in Vanguard, even though we weren't supposed to be able to, apparently. And you could go look at all of the different CDL rule sets, and there are options to turn off destructible environments. And I went through every single map with destructible environments off, and just they looked way different. There's a lot of destructible environments in the game that actually affect the way the game is played. And I know that was a big thing that everybody was worried about before. Jeb mentions that in his video about it. He also just mentions that it feels like Modern Warfare, but it feels like it has that arcadey pace that we love from Call of Duty. Just get in a gunfight. You win or you die. You're back in a gunfight in 20 seconds. And the new combat pacing system they have, which will allow you to play in crazy game modes all the time, like Blitz, 14v14, Search and Destroy, or 24v24 Domination, those will take away the pains of the pacing of Modern Warfare 19, to where the best way to go on a high kill streak was to plant 2 claymores, run restock, and have a 7.25 shotgun guarding the other door. I don't think that that's going to be a problem in Vanguard.
Super interesting. Yeah, so you've gotten like a really deep look because you played a lot of hours in it. You talked to a lot of people in the multiplayer scene. I'm certainly not as plugged into it as much. Is there anything else you wanted to say about your thought process on Vanguard, where it's currently at, etc.? Or do you want to kind of move on to where we think it could fall short or do really well with the Warzone implementation?
I'm going to There's so much that I have to say because I haven't put it all on a sheet. I have a whole list of feedback about bugs and different glitches and different things that just don't make sense about the game. So don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cons to the beta. Clearly needs a massive, massive overhaul of in some sort of the audio. I was one of the few people I saw put out a tweet that said I could hear footsteps, and I was hearing them consistently. That wasn't just, I made sure to listen out for them. And I had several instances where somebody was 50 feet behind me this way, walking on a certain type of, like, on the beach sand, and I could hear them. And I actually turned, directional audio was working for me sometimes. Other times, somebody can sprint within 2 inches of you. I had a guy actually shoot me in the back of the head with an explosive round bar, one of the loudest guns in the game. I never heard a sound. So there's clearly something going wrong there. Another thing I want to mention is that the weapon balancing does feel good to an extent. There are some clear-cut winners. The MP40 just absolutely dominates everything else without even having any attachments. The STG is also one of the strongest guns. But we haven't got to see the full extent of Gunsmith yet. Besides, if you went in those custom lobbies and looked at some of it, let me tell y'all, the attachments past level 30 get crazy. I really can't make too many postulations about it. Besides, I do think that they have clearly delineated where certain weapons and rifles and all that stuff should function. Like, the SMGs are always going to win if you're trying to run turbo-paced Call of Duty. If you're trying to sprint to fire and kill people all the time. But if you're more comfortable with holding a longer angle and you run a light machine gun, you're going to get fried by anybody if you're not already aiming down sight when you see them. But if you see them and you're already aiming down sight, they have zero chance. The LMGs absolutely shred people like they're meant to. I saw a lot of people complaining about sniper rifles. They feel like they're in a great place to me, especially after getting in the custom lobbies. I got to look at both the 3-line rifle and the Car 98K with good builds at max level for aim down sight speed, as well as not losing the one-shot to kill potential, and they feel good. They felt really good. So I'm excited about the sniper rifles. My other big thing is that I really, really want them to make sure that if they're going to do this detailed gunsmith like they have from Cold War, which I appreciate the hell out of for being there, that it works and that it works right. Because right now it does not work right in a million different ways. Some of the light machine guns like the DP27, you could build it out to where in the detailed statistics, you would have a 1.7 second sprint to fire time. That's, yeah, it's insane, but it's not actually like that in the game. It doesn't get that bad. I just want them to, if they're going to give us that detailed statistic list, make sure it works right, or else you're going to have people like me who are trusting it, trying to build their best weapons with it, and it doesn't work. And I mean, I don't want to, like, True Game Data and JGod, they're still going to have a job. They're still going to be the people we trust the most. But I would like to not have to go watch a 15-minute video or a 10-minute video about what I need to kit my gun out with. I'd rather it be intuitive enough to where I can go into the game settings and just do that myself and look at it myself real quick between matches. Because it is kind of cumbersome to keep up with the meta right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the case as well. I mean, in current game, right? I mean, we don't have as detailed of a gunsmith as we're talking about with Vanguard, but it's still the case where the gunsmith in Modern Warfare and Cold War doesn't necessarily reflect how the guns actually work, right?
Yeah, and one last thing is that shotguns in their current state are absolutely unusable. Neither one can get a one-shot kill without a headshot at any range, besides if you put slug rounds on them, and they're comically bad. I know that some people are going to say that makes them happy, but they wouldn't be in the game if they weren't meant to be balanced to at least compete with some of the other weapons. Yeah. Another thing I'll say is they got to tone down that machine pistol just a little bit. Once I got that thing fully leveled, you can put a 40-round magazine on it, and it's almost better than any primary weapon. Other than that, I've gone through LMGs. The tactical rifles right now have a sprint out time of almost 8.8 seconds. When it comes to even kitting it to be as fast as you can get it with the level 30 attachments. They got to work on that. They need to work a bit on lighting. They definitely need to work a lot on the audio. But overall, I think that this game is going to be amazing, and I still stand by that.
I guess the question comes, and the question in most people's minds is are they going to be able to make enough changes based on what we have in the beta, based on what we're supposed to be getting between between now and then, as much as like we can expect or want, like, right? Like if they can't make those changes in time, and we have a similar tight game to what we have in the beta, there's going to be a lot of very unhappy people, right?
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I want to point out is that I saw this tweet from Hope yesterday, and I can't remember exactly the dates, but the time between the end of this beta and launch is 44 days. It's 43 days now. It's been 1 day since then. Or actually, yeah, it's been 1 day. They extended the beta. The time between launch and it's the most time we've had between a beta and launch in like 6 years. 44 days. Most of the other ones, I think Black Ops Cold War was like 22 days. Modern Warfare was like 33. I do think that they can, and I think this is the one studio that will. This is one of the first things we talked about when we started talking about Vanguard. And yeah, we were postulating all about, everybody was just quick to put this game down because of the World War II setting. A setting is nothing more than a visual cover for how the game plays, okay? The game can play whatever way it wants to. Doesn't matter what type of weapons we're using. But I think that Sledgehammer is very, very eager. This is both from sources and this is what I've heard for a long time. They are eager to right the wrongs of Call of Duty World War II. They completely overhauled the game halfway through. And if you pay attention to Twitter and you keep up with Call of Duty at all, I have never seen any of their studios as open and as good with constructive feedback as they have been. I know that Treyarch around the Cold War beta were saying all these things. They were going to make it amazing. We all heard about League play, but they kind of went radio silent as soon as the game dropped. The real question is going to be, does Sledgehammer keep it up after launch, or is it too much to handle?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'd be really curious to see what actually happens once the game drops. And again, like you said, we can only guess at this point, but hopefully they make a lot of changes between now and then, and hopefully they continue to listen to the community, etc. Because I think this will be a very important and interesting conversation once the game actually drops to see what's going to be the overall reaction. Because like everybody has stated on Twitter, there's kind of this like life cycle of Call of Duty and Call of Duty fans where everyone says this game's amazing, this game's trash, this game's amazing, this game's trash, right? Like it always happens every year after year after year after year.
Yeah. We're going to transition into our next topic. I'm sure there's a million things I missed about the Vanguard beta. Look, if I would have played it for like 12 hours and then just immediately stepped away and wrote down everything, I'd probably have it all. But after playing for 80 plus hours, a lot of the issues that were bothering me at first stopped bothering me after about that 20-hour mark. Like I just got used to them. But we're going to move on now to the Warzone Pacific and what we can expect with it. What this is all going to be a speculation chant. Okay. This is all just going to be me and Goj kind of going back and forth saying what we think and what we hope to see with the new Warzone Pacific. One thing I will say is that yesterday, a couple of days ago, I was tipped off by somebody that the newest creative director for Warzone at Raven Software actually keeps up with Modern Warzone, follows and reads our news and keeps up with a lot of it. So that is a good sign to me, and I'm not saying that as like a big bragging rights, but that I am nobody, and this guy is keeping up with all of our stuff, and he's actually actively listening to the community's feedback. And we talked in DMs for a second, and this dude is a Call of Duty fan just like everybody else, and that's a good thing to me because they just hired this guy, and they brought him in as a community member since 2003 when Call of Duty launched. And he's a former director of Far Cry 6, all types of other big games. And the big cool thing to me about it, they brought him in for Warzone. And the last game he worked on and directed was Far Cry 6. Have you noticed how similar the map looks to Far Cry?
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't really think about that. I guess there's some correlation there. When we talk about the like speculation and everything about Warzone, I want to keep this conversation pretty short, like somewhere around like 5 minutes or so, because there's only so much we can really talk about unless Doug has real information that he's gotten. But I think based on playing the Vanguard beta and then how that will translate into Warzone, I mean, general impressions, things you want to talk about, Doug. Are there any topics of things you want to see with the kind of Warzone Pacific map that maybe is not as common of a conversation as what people are having on Twitter?
I want to see immediate attention on private matches. Immediate. Yeah. We will be able to find out what needs to and what doesn't need to be done to the game for the competitive scene through those private matches if they are available at launch. That's really the best way. You can watch people pub stomp forever and not figure out what's really going to happen in a comp tournament until you start to see these people all in the same lobby. I think That's one of the biggest things we need to spect. I'm not going to go into all the different delineations of things that we need for private matches.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I do believe that they need to announce that there is going to be multiple map changes throughout the year. And we're not
Yep.
talking, I did a list this week. I did some research on all the Warzone events we've had and put them all on a list, rated them. And I haven't released an article yet, but I did notice we've had 10 Warzone events, 10 of them labeled as events, right? Only, I think it was 5 or 6 of them have included map changes. And those map changes, over half of them were removed after a few months. So besides the big change to Verdansk 84 from old Verdansk, we haven't had enough. And
no, 100%. I mean, it's been a year and a half.
if they were in this space before Fortnite and PUBG, I wouldn't complain about it. But you already have people who have set the blueprint and you have to follow. And that's just the way it is. And I think that this new map, with the way it looks designed, I'm confident it gives them the ability to do that more often, because I feel like changing a couple of POIs won't affect the whole flow of the map. Just off of how you could see coming down from that mountain is extreme height advantage, and then you get into valleys and gullies and all this other stuff. I think they'll be able to do some cool stuff with that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think what you said about customs is extremely important. I think it's extremely valuable to like mention this as well. I think there has to be a reason, and I think probably the main reason will be, the fact that they're trying to change source code, etc., for their custom match UI in the current Warzone. There has to be some sort of easier way to make changes to custom matches with the Vanguard the release, and it's probably the only reason they haven't made any changes thus far in custom games. I mean, the only changes we've seen in custom games in like the totality of them being released are like the one fix they had like 2 weeks ago where they fixed the res times. I'm pretty sure. I mean, is there literally anything else they've changed
only
since
acknowledged customs twice. They acknowledged it that time, and they've acknowledged it previously whenever Tony True Game Data went into private matches to try to see if he could start testing there, and realized that there were different statistical values for weapons in private matches versus public matches.
Right.
So Raven was forced to respond to that, but that was the only time they've ever talked about customs.
Yeah. So it'll be a really interesting point to see if they emphasize customs more or if they continue on this trend. Because if they continue on this trend, it could quite literally be the death of quote unquote competitive Warzone if they don't have these things added. Yes, there's 2v2s. Yes, there's pub matches in TKRs and stuff for tournaments, but custom matches will really be the future of competitive Warzone, especially if they want to expand into something like what ALGS has or like FNCS for Fortnite. Like, if you're trying to do something similar, you have to have a custom game UI that is vibrant with customization options as well as like caster mode, etc. And I'm hoping that with the implementation of Vanguard, we'll also see those changes be brought in as well.
Also, what I'm hoping to see with the implementation of Vanguard into Warzone and the transition to the Pacific map is an immediate acknowledgement of a ranked mode coming. Immediate.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's already, I mean, of course, I talked about it before there was breadcrumbs, but the breadcrumbs are there now. It's quite obvious what is happening. If you pay attention to the Call of Duty and the competitive scene, and you compare this Iron Trials and the attention they're giving it compared to any other game mode, it is obvious that there is a magnifying glass on this game mode at Raven Studios, and that they are paying a ton of attention to it, and that they are making active changes to make it the best competitive experience possible. Now, what does that look like? This is going to be a bit of a... Let's go on an adventurous route for a second here, Ghost. What if instead of this being a game mode, and what if instead of only these changes being available in ranked, what if they make this the new way that Warzone is played and add a ranked mode for this?
Are you talking about Iron Trials?
Yeah, like don't call it Iron Trials, just this is Warzone now.
I kind of doubt they do that.
I doubt they do too.
I think they make the ranked. Like, I think there's a lot more case to be made that Iron Trials will be the ranked mode than there is that Iron Trials would be the public mode. And then they make a ranked mode as well, because public Warzone has been already tried and true and proven to be a big winner in terms of like monetary value that it can bring Activision Call of Duty, right? So there's no reason they would change the public format for casuals, especially because I believe a general casual gamer may not see Iron Trials as a very fun game mode compared to what they're used to. So yeah, I definitely, I hear you for sure, but I would definitely guess and put a lot of money on the fact that if they're doing ranked, it's going to be Iron Trials focused, because they want to increase the skill gap for ranked. If they keep it the way it is right now, it's not going to be near as successful, in my opinion. And I think that showcases that they're actually listening.
I agree. I just wanted to throw that thought out there because I've seen other people talk about it. The one thing that I will take from that theory slash thought is I could see them just straight up upping the health in Warzone, because it has led to great gameplay. Aside from all the other Iron Trials changes, I mean, they would have to reduce the rate you regen health, but that's about it that I could see them having to do with that. And previously we've talked about it plenty. Raven said, I don't even know how long ago it was, but that they are aiming to get the time to kill to a certain threshold, and we are still far from that. We're quite a good bit away from that. So that's the only thing that I take out of that maybe could be sort of kind of true. Moving on to the next topic about what I think and what we think could happen with Warzone Pacific, I want to talk about the introduction of World War II weapons in Vanguard and in the Warzone, entire meta. Been talking about this for a minute. I made a little tweet today that I couldn't believe the number of pro slash competitive slash people who really take themselves seriously on the competitive level of Warzone who didn't even touch the Vanguard beta, because Raven has already announced, Amos Hodge announced it's going to that engine. It's going to feel almost the same as Vanguard. And I don't want to say whether or not it's for sure going to have that tactical sprint delay, but if you're trying to, don't get yourself behind the curve, guys. The whole game is moving over to this, and this leads to the thing I'm trying to talk about, which is manufactured obsolescence. So we're at this point, we're at the point to where now there are hardly any Modern Warfare guns that are viable, and the only thing that you see about an update to Modern Warfare guns is when they're too good and they're nerfed. Okay. So you can call that manufactured obsolescence. This isn't picking a bone with anybody at the studios. This is an obvious business path to take, and I don't blame you for it at all. And then now we have the Cold War weapons being dominant. When Vanguard comes out, the Vanguard weapons should be dominant. Modern Warfare weapons should be getting close to I don't know if they'll just put Cold War weapons at that same level, and then all previous titles will be at the same level to where you can use them all evenly. And then the newest title will just be the top dog. But the big question here is Vanguard currently has 10 attachments. Black Ops Cold War currently allows you to have 8 in multiplayer. In Warzone, it is only 5 still. Modern Warfare only allows you 5. Warzone only allows you 5. We talked about it. I'm starting to feel 95+% positive that we're getting 10 attachments in Vanguard. And if not 10, at least 8 in the Warzone integration.
Yeah.
And that sounds kind of scary at first.
Yeah, especially because the other guns won't have that, I'm assuming, right? And so the question becomes, like you said, manufactured obsolescence of hey, are these other guns, Modern Warfare and Cold War guns that I've worked so hard to level up and get armor and bought armory packages, etc. for, are they going to be under leveled? Or are they going to be less powerful? How is this implementation going to actually work, right?
Yeah, I think they just have to work. They have to be viable, but not top tier. I think that's their goal, is to put when I say obsolescence, they're not obsolete. You can still shoot people and kill them with them, but there's just better options for you out there. And I feel like they're going to put, this will be our first chance to look at it, because so far we've only got to see how Modern Warfare weapons have declined and Cold War weapons are still on top. I think that when the Cold War weapons do start declining because of new updates and stuff, I think they'll fall right to the level of the Modern Warfare weapons. And then when Vanguard is no longer the next game, we're playing Modern Warfare 2 2022 or whatever, I think the Vanguard weapons will come down here and we'll have this big slate of previous games guns that are viable, but the new game's title will be much better. And that's why I think that the Vanguard weapons are going to just come out of the gate dominating with 10 attachments.
Yeah, I think there's almost no way that they don't. I totally agree. Totally agree. It'll be really interesting to see, obviously what metas come to the surface, but also how much of an uproar there will be because of that, or if it will just be oh, that's okay, we're used to that.
Yeah, I put out a tweet about it earlier. People seem to be unhappy about it, but you just have to pay attention. The only thing that I think that they could do differently than the 10 attachments is, I could see this just because Coach said he hasn't played it that much, but if you go look at there's 2 different new things that are in Vanguard. They're called weapon kits and weapon proficiencies, and you can put them on your weapons. They function basically like perks. Each individual weapon has their own. So the proficiencies and kits aren't unique to classes. They're unique to individual weapons, and sometimes are shared between weapons. Some of them are extremely dominant. There's one that it's called Frenzy. It's the last one available for the Thompson. It immediately regenerates your health when you kill somebody. If you introduce that into Warzone, there's no reason to run quick fix. So I struggle to think that certain ones like that will end up making the cut, or that they won't be rebalanced. But I could see them just cutting completely the kits and proficiencies out and making it 8 attachments, because we've spoken about it before. Modern Warfare has concept art of 8 attachments. Black Ops Cold War already has 8. They could just completely make it to where Modern Warfare weapons get 8 attachments as well, and so do Cold Wars moving forward. It's just that the World War II guns will be better.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, that could be the case. I can't see them really adding more attachments for Modern Warfare weapons because it gets so convoluted. And it could just be like, hey, we're going to start eating, we're just going to start eating this up. And we're just going to start using the weapons at hand for the new game, because Modern Warfare weapons are 2+ years removed at this point. But I don't know. I don't have too much problems with this theoretical implementation of Vanguard weapons, because it is a new game and it is a new map and it's going to feel like a brand new Warzone. So it doesn't really bother me that the Kilo is no longer viable in Warzone. I mean, it's already, like, if you really think about the current meta right now in Warzone, how many Modern Warfare guns are actually creeping into that meta? Kar 98, maybe the Modern Warfare MP5. Is there anything else? Like, I don't think so. So
No.
it's already Cold War weapons anyways. So this doesn't bother me that you're going to be using Vanguard weapons when the game comes out.
I would say this. I think it's getting to be too much, and we've talked about it way long ago. They've mentioned in their articles before that they do have the right to, and that they will, if they see fit, vault weapons. They only mentioned it once. They haven't talked about it since then, and they made damn sure to clarify with all their Vanguard announcements that all of your previous weapons, anything you've spent money on, will still be there. And I get it. They're facing a lot of backlash for a lot of different reasons right now, due to the lawsuit and everything else going on. The last thing they need is a PR fire of a bunch of angry nerds mad that they can't use guns they spent money on for Warzone. I do think in the future that we will see guns be vaulted from entire games. I could see, after this year's cycle, I could see Modern Warfare guns just whoop, because then they're going to have Modern Warfare 2022 guns. So I could see it on a 3-year cycle, because that's the way COD works. It's going to be, we have Infinity Ward, then we have Treyarch again, and then we have Sledgehammer. And each different time, it'll be 3 years since their last game. So their first games will be dropped. That's how I see them doing it personally, because there's no freaking way, bro, that we end up with 4 different games worth of weapons. We'd be at a number over 200 with like 500, 700 attachments and a gajillion perks.
Yep, totally agree. And if one of those guns somehow crept back into the meta, that would be a huge issue.
Yeah, like right now, people are realizing that the Modern Warfare AUG is good again, and I really like to stay up to date. And even for this is my full-time job, and I can't keep up half the time with how many secret things are found that happened with these old guns that nobody thought changed. And I just couldn't imagine, like, as a casual, it's got to be hard to digest all the content sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's why a lot of people make content around this exact topic. Like we've mentioned them 1,000 times. Jay got in True Game Data. There's a reason they have a job. They'd have a job even if it was more clear and there was less guns. But there's a reason people are always searching on YouTube, Twitter, etc. What is the meta? What is the meta? Exclamation point meta, exclamation point gun, exclamation point whatever. Because it's so like
it's just not intuitive anymore. It used to be intuitive. You could tell after playing a day of multiplayer that everybody was using the last gun you got from leveling up, like the Commando or whatever. But it's just not, that's not the case for Call of Duty anymore. It seems like they give you some of the best guns to start the game these days.
Yeah, certainly sometimes is the case. But this is a good conversation. I like this. We've talked about a lot today. Doug, I really appreciate you giving us a lot of insight on Vanguard in particular, because it's not something I had a ton of insight comparatively to. And you gave a lot of really, really good points. And I think a lot of people will disagree with you, and a lot of people will agree with you. It's a very split decision on whether the game is liked or not, according to all Twitter polls and things I've seen. But again, our hope is that the beta things that need to be changed will be changed when the game actually releases. And we're hoping they make those changes pretty quickly. But I think that's all I've got, Doug. Anything else you want to talk about before we finish it off?
I just want to finish with this statement because I haven't seen it brought up that much on social media yet, but I am sure it's coming soon. Okay. There's going to be a wave of people upset about the suppression system, and there's going to be a wave of people upset about the kits and proficiencies and stuff like that being unbalanced. And what I have to say to you is that Sledgehammer is making their best effort to actually listen. If you tag them in constructive criticism, I do believe that they are listening. And I do believe that they will listen to this, but this is going to take a big push. If we as a community are against suppression, and I applaud them for trying new things. You know, I understand that Battlefield's had it, blah bitty blah bitty blah, but at least they're trying something new. The last game I can think of before Jetpacks had tried something new, I absolutely hated and just dropped the series Ghosts. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, especially considering that World War II Sledgehammer Games' last game was so negatively received, and we all thought they would be booted from the entire, cycle. So I really think they want to make this the best game that they possibly can. And if you guys have an issue with the suppression system or with the flinch, those are, I think, the two big ones that we're going to see a lot of people having issues with is suppression and flinch when the full release happens. Be constructive in your feedback. And don't listen to anybody who tells you to shut the hell up. Make sure you get your feedback out there. Don't be a douchebag. Don't be disrespectful. But those are two things that I could see the internet absolutely exploding about and just, throwing a huge hissy fit and expecting it to be fixed quickly. I'm telling you right now, there is no way it's fixed quickly. It is integral to the game they have developed at the moment. It is all throughout all the different perks, all throughout all the different weapon attachments. Everything that is new is integral to the game. So we're going to really, really have to, if that is something that the Call of Duty community decides as a whole it hates, we're going to have to work together to push for a change.
Great final statement, Doug. I appreciated that a lot. Well, I think that's all we've got today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Doug, I think this is a great opportunity to finish off the podcast as we always do. Where can people find you? What are you working on? Anything new besides anything we've already talked about?
You can find me, as always, on Twitter at DougDagNabbit, or you can also find me at Modern Warzone, of course. ModernWarzone.com hasn't had an article uploaded to it in about a month, but that's about to change real soon. I have some very well-researched things that I want to talk about with the community, and just ever since I went on that MFAM trip with you, Goj, and you talked to me, and I talked... Dude, I have the most renewed revitalization I've ever felt in my life to make content. And it feels great. I just realized finally that I do add value to this community. And recently with H3CZ following me yesterday and told me I'm doing a good job. Meeting Nick in person, him telling me I'm doing a good job. Meeting Tim in person, they're telling me I'm doing a good... I just finally realized, I matter and I'm making a good difference for the Call of Duty community besides what people are saying. And the one that really woke me up was seeing yesterday that the newest Warzone creative director follows me. This is the guy who has the say-so in the direction of Warzone for the next few years. So brother, I'm going to start trying to...
We've all been saying it. We've all been saying it. You just got to recognize it and hear it from other people as well, brother. I mean, obviously, numbers aren't everything, but when you've built them an account all the way to 400,000 plus followers, you've got a name, you've got a voice, and people are freaking listening. I mean, you and I were at the MFAM barbecue, and we literally got recognized for this podcast, which is crazy. So really, really cool. And shout out to everybody that said hey to us at the barbecue. That was a really interesting and awesome experience to be able to kind of be there, meet people that we've talked to online, or just meet people that are fans of ours from the podcast or other things that we do. So really cool. And thank you guys for being bold enough to actually step up and say, hey, we appreciate that a lot.
Thank you guys so much. And the last thing that I'm going to say is that I am trying to transition from focusing on my doubters to focusing on my supporters, because I never in my life knew how many I had. So thank you guys all so much. And I also am transitioning from just content I know will generate impressions, blah, 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 to I want to be a cornerstone in making Warzone a better game. I want to be somebody on the forefront of helping and building a community of other people who want to help and offer real feedback. And that is my goal lately. I'm trying to make that my number one goal, and to just let people know that even if you don't think the devs are listening, I'm listening, and I will tell them what you were saying.
Love that. I love that, brother. Well, hey, appreciate you saying that. I guess, what am I doing? Let's see. Grandmaster Goj, all of the major social platforms. We had a really, really cool conversation today on my stream. with Cloud
Holy
Fuel,
shit.
who runs Twitch Rivals.
Raven Software just said, "What's up, bro?" What the fuck?
What's up, Raven Software? Good to see you guys in the chat. We just finished up the podcast. Hopefully,
sorry
you guys
to
got a
interrupt
chance to
you,
listen
bro.
to some of it. No, you're good. You're good. We had a great conversation, but had an amazing conversation earlier on my stream with Doug involved, as well as Dandro is another great caster with Cloud Fuel, who runs a lot of what Twitch Rivals is doing, specifically talent. Talking about, hey, what is the state of the game right now? What is the state of the tournament scene right now? And what needs to be going on right now? And I've got to pause because Cash App just came in with 100 gifted in the channel. Let's freaking go, Cash App. Holy cow.
What the fuck?
Y'all are crazy.
Dude, what has this last
Holy
5
crap.
days been, Ghost, bro? What is happening?
Listen, brother, you gotta believe in yourself.
Oh my
Thank you for all you
God.
do for the COD community, is what Cash App says right now, brother. Seriously, you've been killing it. Believe in yourself and do not stop, bro. Seriously, we got to keep pumping out the content. Got to keep the regular uploads of the podcast. This has been a really, really, really valuable thing that we've been able to do, as well as everything that you've been able to create from your own platform. Seriously, you're amazing.
I'm not
Keep it
crying. I'm not fucking crying today. Nope.
Y'all are wild.
You guys
Y'all
are crazy, man. Thank you so much, you guys. You don't understand. I'm trying to live my life by not disproving doubters anymore, but by proving. I've always been told what I can and can't do, and that I'll never make it in anything I try to do. But I'm realizing now, like I'm there. I'm there. It's time to stop focusing on that. Stop focusing on the negative. Focus on the positive. I'm moving forward. Let's go. Thank you, Cash App, so much. Oh my God.
Huge shout out to Cash App. Hey, if you want to sponsor this podcast, let us know. You guys are amazing. I guess that technically counts as a sponsorship. Thank you for the 100 gifted to the channel.
God.
You guys are incredible. Yeah, I mean, that's a good place to wrap up. The short version was we had a great conversation with Cloud Fuel, great conversation about the tournament scene and what Rivals is doing, in particular World Series of Warzone, and what really needs to be happening with this tournament scene to make it super, super successful. And it was really cool to have a personal conversation with Cloud on stream. So definitely check out the VOD for that as well. That's on my Twitch channel, but it will also be on YouTube as well. And for the podcast, though, we need to say this before we say anything else. This podcast is going places, okay? Doug will tell you that we've been a little bit irregular with uploads, and we're changing that right now, okay? So we're changing it up. We're doing a different way of uploading, and we're going to change the way the rest of the podcasts are being recorded as well. So this is what's going to happen, okay? The stream will still be live every single Thursday, okay? So I want to be very, very clear. We will do not only the podcast recording live, but also we'll do the Twitter space, which we've really been enjoying. The fact there's a lot of people just hanging out on Twitter, listening to our voices about it in a kind of a podcast form while live. It will all be the same. We will start probably by next week. We'll keep you updated via Doug's Twitter. We will probably start recording these and streaming these live on YouTube. This simplifies our upload process on YouTube because our raw footage will just be directly into YouTube immediately when we stream this. And so keep in mind that our live stream will probably migrate over to YouTube. We're actually also starting a Modern Warzone weekly YouTube channel so that our YouTube content is all separate from Doug's original content that he posted on his own YouTube that you should check out. Of course, it's incredible. So Modern Warzone weekly will be live on YouTube, as well as the VOD raw footage will be live on YouTube as well. We'll then take the edited audio and upload that weekly to all major podcast formats, things like, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, etc. Sound good? Everybody understand how this is going to work? So it's going to really be a lot more streamlined, a lot more crisp, cool, calm, collected, and regular, which will allow for future endeavors like sponsorships, Patreon, etc. Sweet. Doug, did I hit all the bases?
You hit all the bases. I only have one more thing to say. Raven Software, I hope you're still in here, okay? I want you to look at me, and I want you to look at me close. If you ever fucking ratio me again on Twitter, I swear to God, I'll figure out who did it, and I will come kiss them right on the lips, tongue and all. Don't do that to me ever again.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, I think that's all she wrote for us. I'm Grandmaster Goge, caster, podcaster, YouTuber. We've got Doug Nabbit, Modern Warzone, the beautiful, the wonderful. Thank you for all the love today, Cash App. I'm eating almonds while I'm finishing this exit. Thank you for the love, Cash App. 100 gifted is crazy. And of course, Raven Software for being a part of the podcast today. That's all she wrote. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Let's go.
Love you.